You're watching the video sermon podcast of First Baptist Church of Marble Falls, Texas. For almost 130 years, FBCMF has served Marble Falls and the greater Highland Lakes area faithfully through children's programs, youth activities, and adult discipleship. We invite you to join us each and every Sunday morning at 9 and 10:30 a.m. for deep fellowship, rich worship, and a spirit-filled message. For those who find themselves unable to attend on a Sunday morning, we stream those services. Simply visit fbcmf.live during either of our service times to view it. Never miss an archived sermon by subscribing to this podcast on YouTube by visiting youtube.com/FBCMFtube. And to learn more about our church or to listen to an audio-only version of this and other sermons, please visit us online at fbcmf.org. In moments of severe stress and importance beyond measure, who will speak for those who lack the boldness to say what needs to be said? Who then speaks life and truth into the natural flow as we move from the calm state of order and orientation to the chaos that is disorientation? And then, when our lives are being rebuilt, who draws our attention to the redemptive nature found in reorientation? But we can rest easy, because it is in these moments that we can have the clarity and assurance that we so desperately need. It is in this, the perfect timing of God, that finally comes the poet.
The problem is that ever since Genesis 3, when sin came into our world, we have been running. God told Adam, if you will remember, he said, because of your sin, Adam, the penalty for it is you're going to labor and labor and labor some more, and it's never going to end. You're going to labor and labor until you're exhausted by the sweat of your brow, is what the Bible says. And the land is going to work against you, Adam, and not for you. It's going to be difficult, and it's going to feel like you run yourself to exhaustion. And then Eve tries to run, and he says, just a second, Eve, I have something for you too. Come on back. He said, Eve, for you, it's going to feel like you run your whole life too. You're going to have children and you're going to raise children. And from beginning all the way to end, the whole process is going to be painful because you're going to run them around, run them from event to event. You're going to run yourself ragged, Eve. You think that when they graduate and they go away, that all of the worrying and all of the running and all of that stops, but it doesn't. You're going to worry about them for the rest of your life. Eve, it's going to feel like you run for your children forever, and that your running is never finished. I've been thinking about all of the running that we do, and y'all know what the problem, the big problem with the rat race is that even if you win it, you're still a rat. We're all kind of like the Greek courier named Phidippides. Phidippides was a Greek courier in the year 490 BC. The Greeks were fighting against the Persians, and Phidippides ran 25 miles, almost in a sprint, the legend says, from Marathon all the way to Athens. And as soon as he gets there, he's announcing that they won. Now, just before that, he had run 150 miles to try to rally support for the war effort. Well, the legend says that when he runs from Marathon and he gets to Athens, Phidippides bursts in the room of the council of all of the Greeks. He comes in and he cries out, "We won!" And then he falls down dead. It turns out that running too hard for too long can kill you. Who knew? I think that's why Psalm 46, which was written almost 3,000 years ago, is so relevant as if it were written just yesterday for all of us. It's relevant because Psalm 46 has a solution for our culture's obsession with running after everything that kills us. Of all the TV characters and movie characters that you wish that you could be like, I think that I have discovered the TV and movie character that we truly are the most like. And here's who it is. Wile E. Coyote. That's us. I know what you were hoping. You were hoping for like a Captain America or a Black Panther or Wonder Woman. Nope, you don't get any of those. Y'all, you're Wile E. Coyote. This is who we are. And so what we need is the same thing Wile E. Coyote needed all the time. We need help. We need help. Psalm 46 offers us the help for the frantic life, the trying to figure out everything, even trying to earn our own salvation and earn everything. Psalm 46 speaks to it, but Psalm 46 ends incomplete. Psalm 46 is not able to achieve all of the things that it promises, and so it needs something else. And so there's a movement from Psalm 46, and it is finally realized in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In Easter, Psalm 46 is finally understood and realized. In the middle of our exhaustion, the poet speaks up, and he makes a claim that changes the whole world, and a claim that's exciting. And he says this very poetically: our God is a refuge. He is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble. So when everything else seems to be falling apart and unraveling, God is there. And then it says this in verse 7, that God is with us. He's not distant. No matter how far we try to run away from God, no matter where we are, God is with us. And it's a wonderful picture of God. But you know, God didn't have to do it like this. He didn't have to be with us. God could have done it like this. He could have stayed very, very back and distant from us. And he could have watched us running. And he could have watched us very distant run ourselves into the ground, run ourselves to death. And in fact, there are many religious views that kind of give that kind of idea. They teach that if you're going to get salvation, if you're going to get to rest and have peace, and this idea to be saved, so that you're not at war with yourself, you're not at war with others, you have rest. To get that kind of idea, you have to earn it. You have to work for it. It is a being saved by works kind of idea. So they say, run, 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 run. They do not present a picture that God runs to us. But somehow, in our brokenness and our humanness and our frailty and our ignorance, somehow we have to run to God. And y'all, the problem with that is pretty obvious, isn't it? That we're going to lose. If you have to find a way to run to God, I'm telling you, you're not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. Nobody is. If you have to earn your salvation, then the game, you're going to lose the game, and you're going to lose it big time, because the spiritual forces are just stacked against us. We face overwhelming odds to try to figure this out and run somehow the whole race of life and figure it out. Even at your best, I believe that even at humanity's, when we have been at our very best, our most enlightenment moments, our moments when we have the best scientific breakthroughs, the moments when government and things seem to be going right, at their very best, there is still war after war after war. There is still issue after issue after issue. It's depressing that at our best, that we can't win. Here's what it's kind of like. It's kind of like that famous football game in the year 1916 when Georgia Tech played against a little school called Cumberland. Cumberland was about to go bankrupt as a school, and Georgia Tech had the best football team in the country. Cumberland dissolved their whole football program. And they called Georgia Tech and they said, we're not going to be able to play you. And Georgia Tech said, no, you signed a contract with us, and if you get out of it, you're going to have to pay us $3,000. And in the year 1916, that would have been like $65,000 today. Cumberland didn't have that kind of money. They were about to fold financially as it is. And so Cumberland said, okay, we'll play. The law school of Cumberland got one of the law school fraternities. And they said, would y'all go play the #1 football team in the nation, Georgia Tech? And the fraternity said, that sounds like fun. And so they all got together and they had 2 days of practice. And then they went out to try to support their school. And they went out against Georgia Tech, who had won 30 games back to back. Georgia Tech showed up, and history tells us that this is the most lopsided game in all of sports history. If any of you have ever had your butt kicked in a game, not this bad. Georgia Tech beat Cumberland 222-0. The game was so bad that at one point, Cumberland's third string quarterback, they had knocked all the other quarterbacks out of the game. One of the fraternity guys was there, and he had never touched a football. And they brought him out as quarterback. And here's what happened. The story said that when they hiked him the ball, that he was overcome by such sheer terror that he threw the ball and screamed like a woman. He threw the ball into the air and he runs away, and the goalpost is on the line, and he turns and he hits the goalpost and knocks himself out cold. They had moments like this throughout. That's about how the whole game went for Cumberland. In fact, here's the scoreboard of it. Somebody got a picture of it. First quarter, 63 points, Georgia Tech. Second quarter, 63 points. Third quarter, fourth quarter, they called the dogs off. 54 and then 42, 222. Cumberland never ever made it past their own 20-yard line. It was a huge landslide game, 222-0. And we're Cumberland. In this game, this is what it's like for us in the world. The world is winning and we're losing. The world is Georgia Tech and we're Cumberland. And all we know how to do when we're losing, when it's not going well, the only thing we can do is just, hey, keep running. You got it. Keep going. And that's us. It's like we're dying. Can I stop? No, you can't stop. You got to keep going. And so we all keep running, don't we? We run all the time. We run to escape everything. We run to escape pain, and we run to escape problems, and we run to escape our past, and we run to escape the one last look, men. Never gonna look again. Run away. We run to escape the one last drink, the one last third helping. We run to escape all of these things. We try to run away and we try to run as fast as we possibly can. Lane, you got to speed up. Speed it up. Run. We run away from everything. We run away from things that have happened to us, things like betrayal and rejection, and we run away from oppression. We run because away from being on the outside, always looking in. We run from so many things. We push them deep down. And we try to achieve because the world says if you run really fast, you'll achieve and you'll be successful. We buy into it. And so we keep running and running because we want to succeed, and we run fast and we run reckless, and we're just going and going and we can't get off. We're going, it's kind of like having a tiger by the tail. You just kind of have to go. We have a treadmill in our home, and it has clothes and toys and stuff on it. And when my daughter Tess was little, she was about 1 or 2, and she saw me running on it. I used to work out on a treadmill, and so she wanted to be like me, I guess. She comes and she says, I want to be on it, so I put it on number 1 or 2, and I'm letting her go. The problem is treadmills get old fast, and finally she wants off, but it keeps going. So how do I get off? And she goes this way, and she's not going to fall off that way, and it just keeps going. And finally, she's looking for me, like, how do I get off this thing? And she's holding her arms up at me while she's going because she needs help. She's never going to get off unless somebody helps her off. We run like a person stuck on a treadmill, calling out to anybody who will listen, can somebody please get me off this thing? And you know, when we add up all of the running and charging and sprinting and speeding ahead, it can begin to feel a whole lot like you're running away from even God. Running away from even God, and that makes a little bit of sense. We have to admit that running away from God, that is our default. When Adam and Eve sinned, you remember what they did? They sinned, and God said, "Where are you?" And Adam said, run away, Eve." They run away from God, and they try to hide from Him. Ever since then, we've been running away from God. Jacob ran, Moses ran, Jonah ran. God found him in the belly of a whale. We run away. In John chapter 9, John chapter 6, Jesus preaches a message, and everybody runs away from Him. The night that Jesus was betrayed by Judas, they were all out in the Garden of Gethsemane. They come and they arrest Jesus and take Him away. All of Jesus' followers, they all run away. Peter denies Jesus Christ. And then a few days later, even after Jesus rose from the grave, Peter runs away to go back to his old life as a fisherman. We run away. Everybody seems so afraid of God. What will He do if He sees me? What will God do if He knows what I have done, if He really knew everything? Listen to Psalm 46. God is right there with you. That means He does know everything. He already knows, and He has run to you. And if He is right there with you, y'all know what that means? It means you can't run away from Him. Now you may try to run as fast as you can, but God is like right here. And we're like, I got to get away from God, and He's just standing here. Can't get away. You remember Adam and Eve? I think it's almost a joke when Adam and Eve said, let's run away and hide from God. I've pictured it to look something like this, where God says, where are you? And Adam is like, oh no, Eve, it's God. And she goes, what do we do? And he goes, let's run away. And she says, that's a great idea. And he goes, run fast, get over here beside the tree. And then and she says, oh, He'll never find us here. This is awesome. We ran away from Him. And the entire time, God's like standing right behind them. And He says, boo. And you're like, God, you just can't get away from Him. And because He's right there. So in the Old Testament, God said, I'm here. I've run to you, and I'll run for you. I will be your refuge. I'll be your strength. So then be still. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. And because of Psalm 46, all of us running, we can begin to be still. Lane, slow down. Slow down. But Lane, you can't stop. Not yet. You see, as life-giving as Psalm 46 is, all Psalm 46 is able to do when it says, be still and know that I am God, all that it was able to do for humanity is help us to slow down. It didn't get us off. It didn't give us real rest. It just helped us slow down some. As life-changing as Psalm 46 is, we had to keep running. And that means God had to take another step to try to do something else. Not only is our refuge, not only is He our strength and He runs to us, but God had to go even further. And so what God did then, in order to help us to totally stop all of our running to exhaustion, to help us, God had to do this, to take on Himself our run. I've been preaching a sermon series called Finally Comes the Poet, talking about Psalms, and this morning I want you to know that it's not finally comes the poet, but this morning it is finally comes the Savior. That everything that the Psalms promised, the Lord is fulfilling for us. Jesus Christ was born into our world, and we believe that story. And He lived among us feeling what we feel, eating what we eat, drinking what we drink, running alongside of us. Jesus began to run it, and he began to see us doing this. He began to see us trying to work out the law all by ourselves and failing and failing and failing. And Jesus began to see there's no way that they can make it. No way we can. And he began to sympathize, and he began to love us. And his heart, the heart of Jesus began to break because of this. He had to do something to fix it. And the more that Jesus experienced what humanity goes through, the more that Jesus was drawn to give his life on the cross. In Hebrews, it says this: for this reason, he had to be made like his brothers and sisters also in every way, meaning he had to run because all of us were running. He had to do this in order that he might become merciful, a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sin of the people. As he experienced our run and how exhausting and what we go through, he's motivated. He wants to make a difference. And so Jesus became like us. He gets on the treadmill with Lane, and he is running with us. And because he loves us, and the only way that we're able to get off is Jesus says, I'm going to go to the cross, and I'm going to run into the grave. I'm going to run to the cross so that you and I can finally have rest. In order that we don't die, Jesus goes and he dies on our behalf. And so he comes and he says, I'm going to rescue you. And you're like, great, how? And he says, I'm going to run the race for you. Psalm 46 is actually achieved in the resurrection, the Easter of Jesus Christ. And when he rose from the grave, for the first time in all of history, Psalm 46 became true, and we could finally be still. We could finally have rest. Even though the disciples ran on Thursday, Jesus came looking for them on Sunday. And he came looking for them to declare this: I am alive forevermore. I ran myself into the grave so that you don't have to. And many, many years after the resurrection was over, when the writer Matthew sat down to write out his gospel message, and he began to think about all that Jesus was, Matthew opens it up and he is writing, and he says there is one thing that Jesus said that has made a big difference in our lives. Because of the resurrection, what he did, and Matthew wrote down, and he was sure to capture Jesus' words in Matthew 11, when he said, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you what? Rest. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my burden is easy and my yoke is light. And the Genesis 3 curse that put us on the run and made us run forever was broken by the resurrection of Jesus. Our culture expects us to keep running because it says if you're going to be successful, you can never ever stop. Other religious ideas demand that we run for our salvation. And so, April Fools, world, we're getting off the treadmill. April Fools, we're getting off. The very reason that we can rest now is because God sent Jesus to take the race for us all the way into the grave, and he was victorious. Now, for the Jews, anytime they won a victory, they knew that it was of God because they were always overmatched and they were always under-resourced. And so when they were victorious, they said, this is all God. It can't be us. And so what they would do is just break in to cheering and joyful song because of their victories in the Lord. And they would just cheer for him. It was as if the Lord rescued them and freed them. And so praise be to God. And they would burst out with songs of praise. So if this is us, and we're running, and there's no way that we can get ourselves off, how awesome is the Lord that because of the resurrection, we can stop. Aren't you tired for Lane? Don't you want him to stop? The Lord looks at all of us like this and he says, I'm going to give you the opportunity to stop. And when he does, when the stop occurs, we cheer for the Lord because he has rescued us. He has given us the opportunity to have rest, to be still. For the first time in your life, the only real rest comes from God himself. And so we're going to tell Lane to get off, and it's going to symbolize that we get to get off the treadmill of life too. And the moment his foot touches the ground, y'all stand up and cheer and say, Lord, yay for the Lord, and cheer for God that he won the victory, and just shout out hallelujah, because he gets off of this and it symbolizes that we're all free and we get to rest. And so let's do this. Let's count 1, 2, and 3, and then y'all yell. When we get to 3, y'all yell stop. And when Lane gets off, when his feet touch the ground, it means, y'all, that God has set us all free. And let's cheer for the Lord the way the Jews did when they were victorious in battle. Are y'all ready? Are you ready, Lane? Here we go. You ready? 1, 2, 3, stop! Yeah! Woo! Yes! Praise God! You're off! You're off, y'all. You're off of the treadmill. No running. The Lord ran for you. Listen to this. When I was in New York City, I was doing mission work, and I went to a park and I met a homeless man who was intelligent and bright, and he didn't have so many of the issues that many of the other people in that park had. No mental and emotional and physical issues. He was sharp. And so I say, how did you get here? What happened? And he begins to tell me his story. He was a stockbroker, Wall Street, throughout his 30s and 40s. And man, he was up at the crack of dawn, and he would work and work all throughout the night. And he would just move and go, and he felt like he had everything under control. But as I listened to his story, it was very obvious that he was running recklessly. And he would get home so late and never ever invest in the things that were most important, didn't know the Lord. And one day he comes home after having this victorious day, and the stocks are up and everything is doing great. He's successful in all of these other things, and he comes home and his wife says, we're done. I can't do it anymore. And they go through a very, very painful divorce, and he doesn't get to see his kids, and it's all gone. And he starts drinking a lot, trying to hide all of the pain, and he's running from all of the pain, continuing to run it, but in a different way. And for a while, he was able to drink and work, no problem, but the drinking got worse, and finally, he just couldn't do the job drunk. He lost everything, but the bottle stayed with him. And as I listened to him, I got the feeling that I was looking at an American version of the Greek runner Phidippides. The poor guy. He got home one day and he said, I won. And in reality, he just lost. That's where our running gets us. You have two choices, as all of humanity does. You can either run to lose, or you can rest in Jesus Christ and win. How is God speaking to you on this Easter? You can continue running, but you'll lose if you do. Or to get off and to rest in the Lord and win in the end. Give your life to the Lord. Y'all, man, I love you so much. Give your life to the Lord today. You may have come with friends. You may have come just to have a moment to draw near to God. However you came, give your life to the Lord today.
You've been watching the video sermon podcast of First Baptist Church of Marble Falls, Texas. Never miss an archived sermon by subscribing to this podcast on YouTube by visiting youtube.com/FBCMFTube. And to learn more about our church, or to listen to an audio-only version of this and other sermons, please visit us online at fbcmf.org.